And I've been chilling, watching the ocean with you. Baby, up with a slow motion crew. And we up in our clouds when people change, but not us. And we just chilling, kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding,
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first day in our three-part series, Engineering Insights. This webinar is brought to you by the School of Engineering Students Representative Council, AKME's, Jamaica Institute of Engineers UTech Student Chapter. My name is Antonia Johnson, and alongside with me is none other than Joel Hansen. How are you?
I'm fine, Antonio. How are you?
I'm good. Looking forward to this session that we'll have with them today.
Yes, and I hope that, well, I know that it will be very impactful because we have a lot of professional engineers with us today. But before we begin, make sure to grab at least 3 persons and join in on the discussion. Feel free to comment in the comment section, of course, and persons will ensure that your questions are answered during this segment. So to kick things off, we're going to be speaking about working in academia. And I think one of the most suitable person for this segment is none other than Dr. Paul Campbell, with over 10 years of experience. So Dr. Campbell has been lecturing full-time at the University of Technology since 2005. His first degree was in chemical engineering, specializing in environmental engineering, but his master's and PhD were in mechanical engineering, specializing in thermal sciences. He returned home after his studies abroad because of his desire to invest in his knowledge and skills in Jamaica. He continues to maintain the heritage of farming amidst other demands of his life. Dr. Campbell, how are you? Oh, your mic is off.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Glad to be here.
And we're certainly glad that you're here, Dr. Campbell. So the first question is,
As you may know, Dr. Campbell, there are quite a number of students who intend to become lecturers after they have finished their first degree. What should be their next step?
There are? I didn't know that.
Yes, there is.
I'm one of them.
You're one of them?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Academic professional should be more directed to research. However, more and more it is necessary that academics have an appreciation for as people would say, the real world. It's especially important in Jamaica. They're generally speaking, not just in tertiary education, but generally speaking, there's a bit of disconnect across the education sector in Jamaica between what entails in the professional world and what you get in academia. So in the education sector. So the education sector for too long has been a place where you get a paper that qualifies you to take up some position of seniority in the organization. And less are is the and there was less emphasis on you carrying over that knowledge. That is no longer the case, and employers are keen on their students, being real world people, and so our lecturers also must have that. Okay, given that is the case, I don't discourage students who want to do academia. I don't discourage them from still going into the corporate world. I just want to say that. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years. But it's quite fitting, and it can support your appreciation for what you're teaching the students. Because remember, you're preparing them for the real world, so you need to know the real world also. Apart from that, you'll have to determine where you want to be an academic, because where you teach will require different skill sets, knowledge sets. If you want to be a local academic, or if you want to be an international academic, even though we think it's one thing, there's a large diversity in academia. Jamaica's old tertiary system was more British based. There's some inching toward a more American style, more American base of knowledge, and then you have the more European, which is a lot more practical, more than we really appreciate. Over in Europe, people become mechanics, PhD in mechanics.
Yes.
When I say mechanic, I thought fixed car PhD or farming PhD. They are very serious in being practical. I personally think much wool is pulled over the eyes of more the developing world. We are told to educate ourselves, but the other side of the world, they're not learning a lot of the esoteric knowledge that we are wasting our time learning. They go straight into the meat of the matter, especially Europe and Asia. So that's, those are other perspectives that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that. But what would you say the benefits of working in academia? Because you mentioned before that students it's good to have experience in the industry and so forth, but why did you choose to work in the academics?
All right, benefits and why. One is you need to know yourself. You should know if you are a person who likes a rigid structure of life, which the corporate world more requires. Now, the modern corporate world, I'm talking the post-COVID corporate world, is different. So it will take a little time for us to see what that looks like. But before this, the corporate world was somewhat strict 9 to 5, somewhat well-defined scope of activities or terms of reference for each employee. But there's more flexibility in the academic world. So that's one. I wouldn't call it benefits. The point is you should know yourself. So if you're that type of person who appreciates flexibility, who appreciates open-mindedness, curiosity as an engineer, wanting to look into different things, that the academia helps that. It helps to develop that research side. That's one benefit. Another one has to do with the social. Again, it's who you are. It's not that one is better than one type of lifestyle better than the other. But the social network or the social space of the academic is largely youth. You know, to some degree, you interact with your colleagues, which would be your age group or older or a few younger. But of course, most of your interaction would be with 20-somethings. And the question is, you know, do you find yourself comfortable with such persons? There are some people who say, "Charlie can't take the young people, yeah, and pick me nowadays," and that type of talk. So if you're somebody like
That's true.
stay out of academia. Stay out of academia. I could think of others as the night goes on, but those I think are the two. Certainly pay is not one of the bigger things.
I've heard about that. Yes.
So you say, so as again, what I say is know yourself, right?
Right.
Because it's not the terrible pay, but in as much as you enjoy it, that can compensate for what might not be as much as you could get otherwise.
That's true. But Dr. Campbell, other than the hard-headed students and the, you know, not so much of a great pay, what would be the downside of academics, or the challenges really in working in academia?
So that's going to be a question of more comparison. There are the downsides. I doubt it's any different from the downsides of the professional world, the corporate world, I should say. That being, you have issues of bureaucracy. Probably a main downside has to do with the fact that tertiary education, much of it, some of it, is public sector based. And so there can be a dragging of processes, administrative processes that can become frustrating. But that goes across the board. Most of Jamaica is public sector employed. So I'm not saying it doesn't have to be academia. You can work as an engineer in many other avenues and still be in public sector. So comparing to private sector, however, that tends to be a little bit less restrictive in terms of you need to get tasks done. You know, you might not find it as much in the private sector. So yeah, that's one issue. There's a lot of things take long sometimes to get done. Procurement processes because of supposed anti-corruption measures and things like that, which I am not in any way suggesting they shouldn't be there, but sometimes they can be counterproductive, literally counterproductive. So in order to improve, in order to reduce corruption, you increase administrative processes, and then that lengthens the time. And time is one of those variables of production that, you know, if it's lengthened, it makes the processes or the product less valuable. Let's put it that way. Um, I'd say that's the main one. That's the main one. One other thing, again, somewhat of a, you have to be careful as a lecturer. You have to be intentional, not to be isolated. It's something that I said earlier in terms of encouraging students who wish to eventually become after graduation to go into the corporate world. So at least you get a taste for that side of things. If you don't have that appreciation for there, you can grow in Silla. You can, and the longer you're there in the corporate world, as it actually as it is in any other industry, you get to a certain age where
Right.
you're stuck in your profession, because there's a sense by potential employers that you do not have an appreciation for, the real world out there. So academics, it could be viewed as a downside, but a wise academic has to be diligent in ensuring that he keeps engaged while he's in his institution, at his educational institution. He keeps himself engaged with
Mhm.
with clients, in a non-academic sense. Having his consultancies, doing his private design work and such.
Okay.
Um,
I
Yeah,
got it.
so what recommendations do you have for students who do plan to go into academia apart from what you have already said?
But more, boy, I will
Yeah,
get this married.
so no. What other recommendations, if any?
Other than assessing yourself and to see if that's really the route you want to take.
Mm-hmm. Other recommendation. So you have of course, please don't study to get by.
Mhm.
I mean, no one should do that. Don't study to pass at this. Um, Especially if you plan to teach something. You can't want to teach something you don't know what you're teaching. Um, yes, I will acknowledge there are some things that you just feel you just have to get through with it, do the test, and when you step out of the exam, that's the last you want to see of it, right? And many of you, you know, when you graduate, that is going to be your attitude to a lot of the content that you have learned. But for those who are saying they want to become academics, especially in all the engineering courses that you will do, every single one, and all math and science courses, um, you are you're doing everyone a disservice to just scrape through. You must have a sincere earnest to learn beyond what is required just to pass. Because I can't teach you what I know. I have to teach you what I know much more of. Right? I have to know something much more to teach you at a lower level. Um, that's a perspective that I think is important. I understand that you'll have to, of course, go to apply to graduate schools. I'm also program director for the masters or the graduate program in engineering at UTech.
Okay.
And so if you're doing it locally, I know there are stricter academic requirements to go into graduate programs. In the USA, you'll have to do something called the GREs. If you're doing engineering, that is, and I expect that that's what you'll do. Um, which it's kind of like the old school in Jamaica when you were going to high school, they had this thing in common entrance, right?
Our GSAT in
Yeah, it's a
R&D,
little
right?
different from GSAT.
RPEP.
Yeah, no, it's quite what I'm saying. The GREs, they just test maths, English, mental ability. That's pretty much it. Um, and you can do one other GRE called engineering. Sometimes they don't really check that grade. They just want to see if you are a thinker and to see if you're a professional in the way of in your handling of the English language. If you are post tertiary, that sounds weird, but I want to see that your master English beyond just the level of a university student, and that you have exceptional skill in mathematics. Not just get through maths, but not just get through engineering maths, just get through calculus and differential equations. But questions will be asked that really see, do you understand what you're saying, or you just regurgitating some some content that was stored in some recess of your brain, That's that's what those tests are. So it's important if you even intend to go that direction, you need to have a healthy understanding of all the topics that you have studied. Um, Finally, again, have a great appreciation for the scope of engineering, not just your specific field of study. So I teach mostly thermal. I started when I just came. I started with thermodynamics too, which is really what I studied, um, generally speaking, in my graduate years at Stanford. But you, but as longer I've been here, I've had to teach other things. Fluid mechanics and statics would be farthest. Well, statics would be farthest from what I did my graduate studies in. But the point is this: um, if you have applied yourself properly during your educational years in topics that are outside of the direct scope of your research or your graduate studies, when you reach the academic state where you're instructor, you will be called onto in a variety of settings. Also, as it is for statics, for me, for statics and fluids and thermal to some degree, you'll have to teach students who are not in your field of study. So I have to teach electrical engineers. I have to teach, well, I am a chemical engineer also, so that would be an example. But electrical and civil engineers, um, I would have to be able to appreciate their world just as much as I appreciate the world of the chemical, environmental, mechanical engineer, which I would have a stronger strength in. Did that help? Those.
That was a lot. That was a lot, but thank you so much. It was very informative, and I'm sure a lot of persons appreciated you for your advice and everything that they recommended. But I'm glad that you're sticking around for the public versus private sector section, because
What
of
time
course
is it?
you'd have a lot of information
Yeah, man. What time would that be?
right after entrepreneurship in engineering. So about
Okay.
next couple minutes there about.
All right, I'm
All
here.
right.
Is it best for me to mute and come off, or and then you call me when that time comes?
We will call you. We will let you know when we
All
are.
right. Can Nathaniel can send me a WhatsApp, and if he doesn't see me respond, just give me a call. All right.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Campbell.
You're welcome.
The next up, we're going.
You and Mark and Jervis. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Campbell. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right,
Next
guys.
up, we're going to go to our first giveaway. So we are giving away $100 digital credit. So I know the streaming is a bit bad, but I hope you can hear the number. If you do get the credit, I'm buying you time so that you can take out your phone and type *121 so that you can get the credit. If you do get the credit, send in the YouTube chat that you got it. All right, no problem. So the digital credit First number 4999794699119. Saying that again. Digital credit $100 4999794699119. So if you did get the credit, hope you did. Hope the stream didn't break while I was reading the number. Say something in the chat. Next up, we have a panel of successful engineers and entrepreneurs. I know a lot of you guys do plan to own businesses in the future. If you do plan to run a business, send the emoji in the chat. So first up, we have Mr. Hugh Gordon. Mr. Yes, he is here. Mr. Hugh Gordon is a trained mechanical engineer with over 20 years of experience in the field. Mr. Gordon has a Bachelor's of Engineering in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Technology, Jamaica. He is the owner of the popular engineering company HTG Engineering Consultants. HTG Engineering Consultants has been a household name in providing structural, civil, and MEP services. I use that abbreviation purposely. For the future engineers out there that don't know what MEP stands for, MEP stands for Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing. So if you see a job listing with MEP, that's what it stands for. Some notable projects include Couple Swept Away, where HTG was responsible for the electrical renovation design for over 140 rooms on the property. They were also the main MEP engineers for the NCB branch at 126 Constant Spring Road. They designed and facilitated all things MEP. Just give a virtual round of applause for Mr. Hugh Gordon. You're here, Mr. Hugh Gordon.
Hey man, right here.
Yes. Next we have Mark Johnson. So for those who picked up, yes, Mr. Johnson is my father. Mark Johnson is a licensed electrician and electrical engineer. He has a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from UTech. He has over 23 years in the experience in the electrical industry. Mark Johnson is the CEO and founder of Mark Johnson Electrical Services. This company is a full-service electrical company that specializes in residential, commercial, and industrial electrical installation and design. I know it's a mouthful. Mark Johnson Electrical Services has been in operation for over 12 years. Some notable projects include the electrical installation at the Old Harbor Power Plant with construction company WePro, and the complete electrical installation for the Royal Decameron Hotel in Montego Bay. Once more, virtual applause for my father. Next, we have Mr. Jervis Johnson. No, Mr. Jervis is not my uncle, not by blood at least. Mr. Jervis Johnson is also an electrical engineer. So the Johnsons tend to be electrical engineers, as you can see. He has a major in power and instrumentation. Mr. Jervis has worked in the private sector for around 20 years or more. He has worked at the Kingston Container Terminal and is now working as a Director of Generation Asset Management at the Jamaica Public Service. We're going to get to that because I'm a bit curious as to what the Director of Generation Asset Management does. Mr. Jervis was also the past representative for the School of Engineering Student Council. So once more, virtual round of applause. Now we see that Miss Diane Plummer has joined us now. Give me a second. Miss Plummer, this is our past teacher. Miss Plummer's journey began as a graduate of the University of Technology, obtaining a bachelor's in engineering degree in chemical engineering. She further obtained a master's degree, rather two master's degree in mechanical engineering and another in sustainable engineering. She is now a lecturer at the University of Technology, where she lectures to many aspiring young minds, including myself. That was one of them a couple of years ago. She teaches courses such as thermodynamics, particle technology, fluid mechanics, and other fields. She is also the CEO and founder of an international makeup brand, True Shade. So you can see that Miss Plummer is multifaceted. Welcome, Miss Plummer, and welcome all of our speakers today. So the first thing that I'd like to ask now, this question is directed to you, Miss Plummer. What inspired you to start your business and how did you go about doing it?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having me on this panel. How I started my journey when I was studying in Sweden, it was very difficult for me to find makeup and skincare as a woman of color. So I just decided to use my background in chemistry and chemical engineering to start making my own skincare products and makeup while I was there. And then I would sell it to my other fellow women of color on campus. So I actually started in my dorm room. So once I graduated and I decided to come back home, I reached out to certain agencies here while I was still a student, such as the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. And in addition to the Branson Center, because I'm a technical person, so I needed some kind of training in business. So I was able to reach out to them and find out how to register a business, etc. So once I moved back home, I think it was in the second week of being back home, I just got everything registered, and that's how I started.
Okay.
All right. So is it the same for you, Mr. Johnson, or should I say Mark Johnson? Because there's 3 Johnsons here. Is it the same for you, Mark Johnson?
Could you repeat the question?
Is it the same process where you start off from, of course, getting the degree? So how did you actually got inspired to start your business?
Well, I started the business before the degree actually, but I started the business because I wanted to own my own company, and I wanted to be able to employ people, and I wanted more control of the projects that I do. So those are the main things that stimulate me to be an entrepreneur and start my own business.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Hugh Garden. So what inspired you to start your business?
Hey, well, mine was kind of different because I was working for 10 years prior when I left UTech, working as a consultant with another engineering consultancy. What happened was that, I saw an opportunity that, I should try to go after, or I went after, to get form my own business. So, after 10 years of working as a consultant with a consultancy and moving up the ranks in that consultancy, I said, you know what, it's time to just go off on my own and try something. I wanted to do more. I wanted to have, similar to Mark, have more control, and employ people as well, to help me.
Your own boss.
To be, essentially, and that's essentially how it started. And I mean, I know we have some more time in this, but I can get into the details of it later on, the trials and tribulations. But
we have a question up for that, so no worries.
Oh yeah, I figure. But yeah, I saw opportunities, so that's why I decided to go after them.
Okay, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am realizing that we are having some technical difficulties with the live stream. The internet is not working as fast as we want it to. We are working on it, so I do hope that it gets sorted out. In the meanwhile, the other question that I'd like to ask is, what are the barriers you faced when starting your business? Beginning with you, Mr. Hugh Gordon. What barriers did you face?
Well, I mean, when you start in a business, and I think this is the same for most small businesses or starting in Jamaica, is capital. Trying to get that capital or trying to get, loans, especially when you're approaching, banks as an individual, it's difficult. So that was the challenge I had. One of the things I wanted to do when I started was, getting equipment, like for example, energy data loggers. That was one of the things I started off doing at the beginning. And of course, those data loggers are 3,000, 4,000 US. So it's not cheap. So the biggest challenge I had was really accessing capital to start to help with the business.
All right, thank you. So, Ms. Plummer, was it the same barriers that you faced as well, or were they probably a little bit different?
It was similar, actually. Getting capital to start. That was one of the main challenges that I had. How I was able to overcome that was to, of course, they say when you're starting a business, you ask family, friends, and fools to invest. And so that's what I did. Family bought me some ingredients, equipment initially, etc. And also what I did at the time, there was a grant opening as well for innovative businesses. And I applied and I did a business pitch and I was successful. So that's how I was able to get some funds to purchase equipment, to retrofit my lab, etc. So yes, that's how I was able to overcome that.
All right, that's a lot, especially for persons who are thinking of actually owning a business. And I'm seeing a trend here where capital is one of the challenges, and also getting equipment. Is it the same for you, Mr. Mark Johnson?
Yeah, pretty much. Finance is one of the major milestones to cross, because when you get projects and you need to, if you don't get that allowance to start the project, it's a big thing you have to try. But what we do is we use the purchaser that we get, the agreement, the contract, and we approach investors or the bank to get a loan from them so you can start it. So that's one of the main things I use to overcome. And also in entry to marketing, that's a big, when you're new to the industry, you're just going to feel starting your company. Nobody know you, they don't know how good you are.
Right.
Yeah, you have to work for your credibility. So in that case, what I do to break that barrier is to go just marginal profit. So I try to be more cost effective and then offer the same top quality that any other competitor would have offered.
Okay. All right, thank you. So I'm learning so many things about what to do, the challenges, the benefits of actually owning a business, academia, everything, overall engineering. But what are two things that you wish you knew before starting a business? And this question goes to Ms. Diane Plummer. Your mic is mute. Oh.
So you're asking what are two things I wish I knew before starting?
Right.
The first one is the importance of contracts. And that was a very expensive lesson for me, actually. So I had a client, and I was doing, because I do private labeling as well and formulation. And I had a contract with her, but she didn't quite understand the process of it. And a few weeks later, I was hit with a letter from her lawyer because the process was apparently taking a bit too long. And even though that was outlined in the contract, she didn't quite, it was her first time, doing this kind of work. So it was, I mean, it wasn't difficult for me to get out of it, to be honest with you, but it ended up costing me as well. So I guess, having the importance of contracts and doing your due diligence, not only on your clients, but also on persons that you're working with. So for me, those are two things that I wish I had learned earlier on before I started my business.
The two major challenges was finance and entry to marketing. But challenges in the operation is also, as an engineer, is when you're having multiple projects and to meet deadline, and you have to try overcome it by getting the required human resources and put more planning into the project in the early stage.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm seeing the trend here that you get a degree, you got some experience, and also you got some experience in the field, figuring out how to finance your business. So what's the next step? And this is for Mr. Hugh Garden.
Well, really, next step after, you get everything, going and this is just to make sure I understand after you get the finances and you have set up the business, correct? What are the next steps after that? Correct?
Right.
Right. Well, I mean, do what you do. I mean, is you're an engineer, and you'd have gotten this far in terms of doing your work. In my case, it was MEP, and it's really MEP and F now. Because the
what's
fire
the F?
aspect, fire.
Oh, okay.
So it's usually it started as MEP, but added the F part now because fire is a big design aspect of what we do as well. So essentially, you just hit the ground running. You get your clients, you get the work job done, you maintain the quality of the work that you're doing. And one of the things you have to do is, try and see where you can improve what's out there, keep up with technologies, see what your clients are demanding or requesting, see if you can meet those challenges. Also what is good for
Look out for that on day two, definitely.
Look out for that on day two, definitely. As a consultant, is to know your utilities. I know, as you said, Jervis works at JPS, so you have some contacts at JPS that when situations come up, you can lean on them for some assistance. Your utilities, water commission.
All right, so
there that,
we were on the topic of challenges, and I was about to ask Mr. Mark Johnson if this
sewage available there.
what other challenges have you faced in starting your own business?
A 500 kV transformer.
Sorry, I mentioned earlier that two major challenges was finance and entry to marketing.
Your contacts in the field, so it makes what you're doing a little bit easier.
In the operation.
Also you try and, as I said, focus on quality control, focus on the quality of what you're putting out there. People depend on you, especially in my field. People depend on you for the right information. So you have to ensure that you're checking the boxes, you're reviewing your work, and what we tend to do at HPG is also do value engineering. So we do our first bite at the project. We do the designs for it, full MEP designs for it, and we take a step back and say, okay, let's do the value engineering. Do we have to have the platinum design? Probably we can step down to silver, or gold, and have that discussion with the client. So it's about honing your craft, getting the information out there, keeping the quality, high, always high quality going out there. And keeping the team in check with the mission statement of the company, and move forward.
Okay. So Ms. Plummer?
Okay, so what I would also add to what Mr. Hugh Garden would have said is to just be customer centered. So whatever you're doing, you would have to be able to satisfy some kind of need, because you're starting a business to probably fill some gap that is out there. So you have to be customer centered, ensuring that you're offering something at a good quality, being consistent, and of course, meeting your timelines and your deadlines. So that's what I would add to that.
Definitely, consistency is key. And of course, the quality that you provide for persons, definitely. I would 100% agree. And finally, Mr. Mark Johnson, after financing your business, what's the next step?
Well, let me backtrack a little bit. After you finish your degree and you get the required license to practice, if you don't have the buffer and you need to partner with somebody. Well, what the next step is to I partner with other persons for a smoother transition. And when I partner, what I do was after that, I start to create a company profile and start sending it out to various prospective clients, companies, and that's marketing your brand, and try to ensure that whatever you send out there, you maintain the highest quality of the customer expectations.
All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Mark Johnson.
Perfect.
So basically, and this is a very, very important question. Did your engineering degree help with your business skills? So for example, I know for electrical engineering, you have economic courses, and of course, chemical engineering has Spanish. So do these other additional courses help with your business? Starting with Ms. Plummer.
If additional courses that I would have done during my bachelor's degree, if that helped with my, I would say yes, to be honest with you, because we did some amount of chemistry. And I think doing that project management, that initial project management and how to handle a project, that also helped me in terms of scheduling and things like that. But yes, I do think it added some value to it. And of course, it doesn't hurt to do some kind of business courses, whether it's just a crash course, reading up something, or just watching some video on YouTube helping you to understand basic business jargon and basic business tips. So I think, yes, having the technical knowledge that I gained from UTech was important. But because I am a technical person, I also needed to, increase on my knowledge on business. And also, Mark Johnson mentioned teaming up with persons. So I would also team up with persons who are also good at certain things that I'm not as good at. So yes, having the initial knowledge is important, and then you can fill in the gaps by other training and reading as well.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Mark Johnson?
Right. Well, a number of courses, the degree helped significantly. A number of courses we did there that if I didn't do this course, I wouldn't be as efficient as I am now. Even though, real life experience is a lot, but when you come on to management for engineers, when you talk about quality management, Maslow theories, I mean, those things when you apply it to real life and with the experience that you get on the street, believe me, sky's the limit. And economics, break-even analysis and those kind of stuff, sometimes you're getting a project, you can't think account, you have to think of long-term. I'm entering into this new contract with these people, but these people have potential to give me a lot more projects and bigger projects. So, hey, break-even is good for starter, So economics help a lot. AutoCAD, very, very important for engineering, because you have to know it to design. As you design, you need to bring it to your technology or to your client or whatever. They need to be able to see what you have in mind, and so that's very, very important. Industrial engineering, then very, very, pretty much all the courses that we do help me know to even just to be able to get in my assignment done on time. I realize if you delay while you're at school to get assignment done, when you're in the real life situation, you have multiple projects managing, multiple people managing, and you have to manage different resources. You realize that school pressure that you're under was nothing at all. And you have to deliver, because if you don't deliver, you don't get paid.
Right, definitely. Especially when you're your own boss.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, you carried me back when you said Maslow's theory. You carried me back with that.
Yes.
All right, and the final question is, Antonio, want to take it away?
No problem. I'm here. What is your advice? And this one is for Miss Diane Plummer. What is your advice for future engineers who plan to work in academia and run a business? I think you can hear me.
All right. Well, if you decide to work in academia and operate a business, you definitely have to have your time management skills on track. It's very, very important because you don't want to be in a situation where you're falling behind in both areas or in any areas. You still have to maintain those two standards because I am working full-time at UTech and I'm also running a business full-time. So of course, I have to ensure that I'm meeting my targets at the university as well as within my business as well. So as I would always tell my students, like Joel, time management is very, very important. It's extremely important. So maybe my students may think I'm a bit hard on them because of that. And it's because I know what they should be capable of. And because I'm doing so many things and I'm like, hope these students are telling me that they don't have the time when your full-time job right now is just to be a student. You know, so for me, doing both, it is possible. Working at UTech allows me that time. So that's a plus. And whatever extra time I have, I dedicate that to my business. And of course, having a good team behind me is important. So managing your time and ensuring that you have the right team that can complement areas that you are lacking in as well. So those are my tips for persons who want to venture into both.
Thank you, Ms. Plummer. So the other section that we have now is public versus private sector. And we had introduced Mr. Jervis earlier today. I always wanted to ask, Mr. Jervis, you're here, right?
Yes, I'm on.
Yes. What do you do as the Director of Generation Asset Management?
Yeah, so like I knew that question was coming. All right. You don't hear any engineering in that, right? Well, so just strictly speaking, asset management is really extracting maximum value from assets. So there are two universes where that is concerned, right? One is finance, where you only hear a financial institution talk about asset management. What they are talking about there is how they use your money to make more money. Not dissimilar from that is the engineering context, right? Where we try to look at how we can make sure that we get maximum value from working assets. So a company that is asset intensive like JPS, you know, you want to ensure, you remember what that means, by the way, is that we have several things there. We have transportation, we have poles and wires, we have transformers, and we have large generating facilities. Those are all assets that are used to generate electricity. And from the generation of electricity, we make money. So as a result of that, with that being the case, what you want to do is to ensure that all of those assets are in proper working order to provide, to fulfill that need, that customer need to have electricity always up and running, right? In a gist, what the asset manager does is that he participates in the acquisition, the operation, the maintenance, and the disposal of assets. So that's what asset management is in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. So, well, you are the next person, same topic. Why did you choose to work in the private sector, and how did you end up at JPS?
All right, so I don't think I chose specifically to work in the private or the public sector or the private sector, right? It chose me, right? Typically, what you'll find is that as an engineer, when you graduate and you leave university, the first thing that's going to be on your mind is getting a job, right? Whether that job is in the public sector or in the private sector, it shouldn't matter too much because engineering is engineering, whether it is being done through a public body or a private body. And that changes nothing substantially about the type of engineering that you're going to do, right? So it's really up to you now as to whether or not you want to take up an opportunity as that is presented to you in the public sector or in the private sector. So that is really how I would look at it, rather than a choice between working public sector or working in the private sector.
I understand. So we noticed that you worked for probably most of your career as an engineer in the private sector, correct?
Yes, for most of it, yes.
Yes. So what would you say are some benefits that you see with being a private sector worker?
All right. So if you're talking about benefits, I want to just kind of ensure that we're talking about the same thing. Do you want to zoom in a little bit more on what specific area you're talking about in terms of benefit?
Well, all right. So discussion that some of our students have is that private sector tend to have a high turnover rate in terms of workers. So they don't tend to keep workers as long as, for example, a public sector body. So that is one con, for example, that person would probably want to choose a public sector job for example, job stability.
Okay, so I think what you're speaking to there is really more along the lines of remuneration, right? All right. Well, I haven't done the study, but I think the private sector may remunerate you more cash in hand, while the public sector may focus on the leverage a lot of their strengths in benefits across the wider public sector bodies. So, in terms of their bargaining units, they would negotiate kind of contracts that will give them some kind of benefit outside of their normal salary for housing and other, compensatory packages to along with their salaries that would probably encourage them to stay. The private sector now is more along the lines of, it's usually more cash in hand kind of thing. But at the end of the day, it's how much you really enjoy what you're doing wherever you are placed.
No problem. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Jervis Johnson. I also have another question. So what do you love about working in the private sector? What do you love most about it?
I don't know. I think there's a certain I want to say there's a certain kind of discipline in the private sector that's a little bit different from what you tend to see in the public sector. There's greater accountability and so on. What you find is that in respect to how jobs are carried out and so on, it's a lot more predictable. The outcomes are a lot more predictable. And I tend to like that because I'm kind of service driven. I like to ensure that whatever service that I am asked to provide, I am providing a service. And I think about my customers all the time and what they're experiencing. A while ago, you noticed that you were experiencing some challenges with another utility, right? And you know how that feels. Now, I know you don't want any kind of challenge from my utility. So I know that everybody is unanimous on, on that one. So we tend to want to ensure that all the systems that we have in place, that they're working and that they're working optimally and that they'll meet the customer's expectations. So that's one of the things I like best about working in the private sector.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to touch on the public sector aspect with Mr. Paul Campbell and Miss Diane Plummer. Just to ask, what do you love about working as a lecturer? So this is for Mr. Paul Campbell and then Miss Diane Plummer.
What do I love regarding working as a lecturer? That's the question, right?
All right.
Sound like you're asking me about the same questions, man. All right. As I said, just depends on who you are, right?
Right.
I really like the engagement with students who who are keen on learning. Um, I I'm heartened when I meet them after they graduate and I see where they are, where they are going, what they've been doing, and to appreciate that the investment was more than just an academic exercise, but it actually is bearing fruit for them in their professional activities. I personally like that. Um, appreciate when they contact me and say, "Sir, how you doing?" And sometimes they may have a little issue they happen upon in their at their factory or wherever they're working, and it's not one of the cookie cutter um, problems that you just contact the vendor and say fix this. It's a little bit more challenging or a little bit more unique, I should say. And yes, and they call back to those first principles, and so I like that type of engagement. I I I really do like to teach, or probably said another way, I really am called to teach. Um, not everybody is like that, so I appreciate that. Now, regarding the public sector sense versus the private sector sense, um, the, there was, I think, Mr. Jervis Johnson had mentioned that there's a bit more discipline, he'd say, in the private sector. He said, yeah, I'd say discipline in terms of your daily. There's a lot more structure, imposed structure. And I'm speaking from the academic perspective. There's a lot more other public sector space or other public sector jobs out there that are far more from the experience of the educator. I'm speaking from the education perspective. So while the private sector has a lot more structure in terms of you come in, this is what you do, these are the, and as he said, a lot more predictable in some senses. My job is a lot more fluid. It requires, therefore, more self-discipline as opposed to imposed discipline. I don't want to. I don't even want to make it look like private sector people are less disciplined. That's not the point. But what I'm saying is, the preparation that I have to make, for example, in preparing my presentations, the work managing time. Everybody has to do that. I am only assuming. The point is, our hours are not the same. 8 to 5. Our hours are all over the place, depending on lecturing time, and all those things. So I'd say there's a lot more of that. Also, and again, I don't know how COVID has changed things, but there's a lot of extending of yourself in the academic world. You're stretched. You have all these a lot of responsibilities outside of the scope of direct instruction. I am not saying, again, I don't want to speak for what I'm not versed in, but really when you're employed in a private sector space, your terms of reference
tend to be somewhat narrower and focus on the technicality of what your job is, and to some degree some administration again related to that. In academia, you will find that you're expected to extend yourself to some degree beyond that, and it's also linked to your advancement, promotions and so forth within the institution. So that's what I find in academia as one part of the public sector. I think it's probably stretches a lot across other parts of the public sector because of this whole, you know, government speaking of their, restrictions on budget, and we have to do more with less. But I think everybody, even the private sector, they say such things also. They have the same concerns. So I think the main thing, it's not so much public versus private. It's a lot more particular to your industry. It's not just a public private thing. That is my perspective. Just as how you can have private educational institutions, they may have a different issues than the public ones, and you can have corporate public sector entities that may take on a similar approach as private corporate entities. I don't know if I'm making sense. He was saying something, but you're muted.
Could you repeat?
No, it seems he was saying something, but he was muted.
Come on, I was saying following him, man. Following him.
Yeah, so I don't want to say it's a public-private thing. I think it's more particular to your
Yes.
particular industry.
And Mr. Campbell, if I might add, as engineers who are preparing to enter the world of work and so on, you don't really want to pitch public against private, so to speak.
Exactly.
It's really different in different areas. But more generally speaking, you might find certain little things that are different about them. But those things could actually change tomorrow.
Yeah.
And with your intervention, with your entry into the market, you could also influence those changes, to be the change that you want to see. So those are just some things that I think you should consider.
Andrews, that's very valid, especially now in the past, 8 months of COVID. What you said is very valid. I mean, we notice a lot of things changing. It's business. It's not quite business as usual, and we just have to adjust.
I would even speak for academia in one sense, and I've seen it's been happening over the last couple of decades. The push toward privatization.
Right.
So it's happening here in Jamaica too. It's happened in the States a lot, where institutions were once government funded, and now they are being called upon. They still carry the label of being public sector.
Yes, but they're executive bodies, really.
Right. But they are called upon to raise their own funds and all those things.
Right.
And slowly, the educational institutions, though public sector in a formal sense, are being forced to adopt the private sector attitudes to survive. So again, it's not so clear cut. In engineering, in the School of Engineering, we have had to really be looking into what we call income generation activities, which pretty much means engaging ourselves just like any engineering firm out there.
Yes.
Same thing.
Seeing yourself as a business.
Right.
All right, thank you, Dr. Campbell. And the same question for Ms. Dan Plummer. Well, the question was just just to repeat. What do you love most about working as a lecturer?
Okay. What I love most about working as a lecturer in the School of Engineering is to actually see the growth in my chemical engineering students from first year to when they're about to graduate. So, when they come in, they're, of course, most of them are very starry-eyed and excited, and they will meet me first because I teach that introduction to engineering to most of the first year students. So just to see how they would have grown, from just being introduced to engineering, and then to just see them take shape and form and develop as future engineers. I think I really like to see that in my students, and I know sometimes they might think I'm very hard on them and so on, but it's just to help them to just push themselves a bit more, and to manage their time well from here, because I think someone mentioned earlier that if you having time management issues during university, once you start working, it also becomes a bit of a challenge in terms of meeting your deadlines. So I tend to have very strict deadlines with my
That's
students.
true.
I don't really extend, because when I was working as an engineer, I would get a project and I would get a timeline. So it's up to me to complete that project in that specified timeline. So with my students, I would give them the projects and assignments, everything from the very first day of class, and I said there's no extension on any deadlines, right? So I like to see them, throughout the years, start meeting the deadlines, and just growing as an engineer, doing presentations um, in a better format. I like that very much, just to see the growth in the students throughout the 4 years. So that's something I really like as a person in academia.
All right, thank you, Miss Wilma. And all what you said is true. Speaking from experience. um, so I have a question here from someone in the registration form. So what we did was ask students what are the questions that they have for the different engineers. And of course, one of the questions is, how can I overcome the stresses of school? We're being taught that engineering is hard. How can I feel more confident in this career choice? And that question, I can direct it to Mr. Hugh Garden. So how can I overcome the stresses of school? We're being taught that engineering is hard. How can I feel more confident in the career choice?
So hold on, is it that they're being taught in school that engineering is hard?
Well, according to that person.
Well, no. I mean, when I go back to my time there, um, it was difficult. School isn't easy, right? Well, for most, right? Um, so I mean, it's just applying yourself, really. Engineering isn't difficult. I mean, when I look back at knowing some of the things that I was struggling with or having a hard time with, it's just a matter of really applying yourself, taking a step back. Time management. We had discussed time management earlier in this webinar. Time management is huge. I know one of the biggest challenge, and one of the things that we said earlier, is the engineering degree helps you in your business. School helps you in life.
Right.
Going to school, applying yourself. There's so much you learn from just school, and what it applies and how it applies to life. Time management, project management, the time that you have to, adjust to, your various lessons, your various classes and assignments and so on. That helps you, is a direct help when you go into the working world and if you start your business. So, I mean, really, I think the first step I would say is to, just take a step back, look at what you have to do or what you want to accomplish today, and just try and plan out the day or plan out the week. That typically will help. And I remember I did that in the latter part. I wish I'd started, I wish somebody had told me this in the earlier part of school. But in the latter part of UTech, I started to apply myself in that manner, plan out my assignments, plan out what needs to be done. Because engineering isn't difficult. It seems difficult, but when you get into it, it's like, as my wife would say, you see the matrix. You can it just falls into place, you know.
All right, thank you so much. And it's so true. Time management is key, especially when you're going into the working world. Ms. Dan Paul mentioned that time management in regards to work, and of course, there's no extension. So that you must ensure that you meet the deadline. So definitely, I agree. Antonio, you have a question?
Yes, so this question is from the forum as well. Someone just finished their degree and they're looking for a job. How do you value yourself in terms of salary-wise as a junior engineer? So this is an open question for whoever wants to take it up. Or I can call on somebody.
Well, I mean, with us, it's a range really. We're in the private sector. It's not the best thing. It can be rewarding, but typically we start at about what was it? I think about 140 take home. And it goes up from there. For a junior engineer.
All right, thank you. Mr. Johnson, Mark Johnson, do you have anything to add regarding that?
Repeat the question again.
Yes. How does one value themselves as a junior engineer? Fresh out of university, employer probably asks them how much do they want to take home or how much do they think they should get paid.
Well, you know what I would answer that. I can
answer. I know, but they don't.
Well, the truth is, when you just leave university, your priority shouldn't be trying to make money. It's trying to learn. It's very, very important. You go there, even work for free for the first year, if possible. Get the experience, the foundation, and after that, you can demand a whole lot of money because you're really not bringing any value to the company without the experience.
That's true.
Yes, Mr. Jervis Johnson, have anything to add to that?
Yeah, well said, Mark. Thank you. And I agree with Mark totally. Don't start out with a focus on what you're going to earn. I heard Mr. Campbell said earlier on that his job in academia is not really a job, it's a calling, right? He feels that he was called to teach. So he's actually doing something that he loves. That's what he's saying, right? When you're doing something, when you do it for the love and not for the like, as a DJ would say, it becomes a lot easier. So if you're going to be engaged in engineering and you start out just being hungry for that knowledge and that experience, you find that it works a lot better. And as a matter of fact, employers know those who are in it for the money and those who are in it because they are called to be it, right? It shows up eventually, and it doesn't take a long time. The people who excel the most are those who come with that hunger to learn more and to contribute and to add value. That's the most important thing, add value. And when you start adding value, a demand is going to be placed upon you. So now it's not you who will be saying, how much can I get or how much are you willing to pay me? It's the employer who will be saying, I will give you $1 million, come work for me. And that's the space that you want to be in. Yeah. But more often than not, the guy who comes in and wants to ask for $1 million the first day is the guy who seldom excel in the career. And it's not just engineering, it goes across any discipline. If you come with that kind of approach, you tend not to reach far in the discipline. So I think it's more of coming to add value rather than coming to claim value. That's my piece.
Right, thank you.
All right, so I have a next question here. So what is the best way for an engineering student to increase the likelihood of getting a job as an engineer in their respective discipline? It goes out to anyone who wants to answer.
You're saying what is the likelihood?
Yes, so what is the best way for an engineering student to increase the likelihood of getting employed after college?
Oh, well, Mark mentioned it earlier. Offer yourself. Start now. I mean, offer yourself for free. That might seem counterintuitive, but it's actually the best thing you could ever do. If you turn up at an institution's door, you write them a letter and you say, well, I want to do a free internship. I like your company, I like what you do, or whatever, and this is what I was trained to do, and I want to learn how to do this, and I'm willing to work for free. You don't have to pay me. I'm telling you that you're going to draw some attention, and immediately somebody's going to say, no, I want to see this guy, I want to see this girl. Let me see what she has to offer. And then you come and they see you applying yourself selflessly. And they notice that people who are paid to do the job, not even as committed as you are, in no time you are in. And that's a strategy that you can use. That's easy. So it's really about the attitude that you put forward and how you approach your craft. And Mark said it perfectly. I believe that's the best way, especially when it's very competitive. You're willing to work for free.
I would also like to add to that. So I remember when I was student at UTech, and what I did in order to increase the likelihood of getting employment as an engineer was to network. So I made sure that I didn't just know students who were in my immediate year, but I made sure that I networked with students who are in final year, etc., have friends across the board, or at least get to know persons across the board, so that when I graduated, I would already know someone who is working in the industry. I also made use of the facilities that are available at UTech, which is a career placement center. My very first job, I got that while I was still a student. And I don't remember applying for that job. I just got a call, and this was at that time my dream company, because I went to the career placement center, I got help with my resume, etc. And they would now send out my resume to different companies, and that's how I was able to get a call for an interview. So make use of your existing network, which is your fellow students. There are a lot of other lecturers who also have links with industries, know persons who may be looking for someone, looking for an intern, etc. And as well as to make use of the existing things that are at UTech, which is Career Placement Center, which worked for me when I was an engineer. So just make use of those things. And of course, as they said, offer yourself as an intern. That's what I would like to add to that, because I know it might be difficult for students to, offer themselves to work for free, right? I know it would be quite difficult for some students, but in the same sense, make use of your existing network and make use of what is there for you as a student at UTech.
Yeah, and I wanted to add also that you're harkening back to good old time education. We call it Prento, right? But if I told you come to university for free, everybody will be like, yeah, but that's what you're doing if you go into a job and say, I work for free. um, in many instances, you demanding pay. This might seem extreme, but you demanding pay as a junior, demanding a certain pay as a junior is almost seen like you coming to UTech and telling us to pay you for the experience and what you're getting out of that engagement. I'm not saying, of course, that you shouldn't be paid, but I'm saying you should appreciate that you may be getting a lot more than just money out of your experience. And that is still education. Um, really, it's the best. And that's where we need to go more and more.
And just a little bit more to kind of narrow that curve, because I know the concern around this is really about affordability. Can I, after spending all of that money for school fee, go offer myself for free and all of that? But remember, it doesn't have to start after you complete a degree. It can start now, right? While you're in school, and that internship can be just a day at an institution. The opportunities that Ms. Plummer spoke about earlier, the placement, the career placement system that they have at UTech. When you get an opportunity to do that, you ensure that you treat it just like that, an opportunity to impress those employers who are seeing you for the first time. And they're going to be comparing you. I'm telling you, they're going to be comparing you to people who they have in their industry for a long time. And they're going to say, hold on, but this guy's doing so much and he's doing it for free, really, because we're not paying him. We might give him a stipend, but it's not paid. And he's doing so much, he's contributed so willingly, and that opportunity to impress them there is an opportunity that can give you employment immediately after you graduate. So, but it's the same thing. It's just a matter of how you look at it. That's my additional comment.
Yes, it is something that my father has instilled in me from a very young age regarding getting a job. But for students who probably wouldn't have had that person instilling that in them, they probably have a $1 million question of, okay, I did not get an internship while I'm in university, finish my degree. I need to sustain myself. How do you suggest they navigate sustaining themselves and working for free?
Can I comment on that?
Of course.
But the truth is, nobody will let you work for free. But what they're looking for is the attitude of growth. And if they see potential where you will bring value to them, because nobody wants liability there. They want you to become an asset for them. So it's the attitude they're employing. Even though you have a degree, many persons have a degree, but is what you bring to the company. You bring that attitude to let the company grow and to grow in the company. Maybe surprised, you maybe even get more money than what the starting salary that other engineers are getting when you come with the right attitude. The person will want to keep you, so they will pay you to keep you.
So another side to it is that there is such a thing as a stepping stone job.
Yes.
So not because you're an electrical engineer, mean you can't do engineering sales. You get me? There's a lot to be learned from that, because in every conversation, whether you like it or not, a sale is going on. Somebody is buying something and somebody is selling something, even in the conversation. We are going to learn some skills there that's going to be helpful in you making a business pitch to your future organization about a project that should happen within your organization, right? So you're going to learn to buy, you're going to learn to sell. So, I mean, that is just one example, but there are several others that you can use to get into where you really want to go. Don't expect that you're going to win right away all the time. You can accept stepping stone jobs. I mean, you might see it as beneath your qualifications and your capabilities, but really it's about humility, and it's something that can take you further. The humility that you gather from a job like that will help you later when the engineer in you is born, right? And you have started to lead people and so on, and that humility helps you in leadership. You understand? And it builds your career and it takes you to higher heights. So, I mean, don't be stuck. Don't be stuck thinking that if I don't get an engineering job in my discipline right away, then the world is over, right? There are still opportunities there, and you should just try and look for the lesson in any area that you find yourself and grow out of it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
So
something also
okay.
regarding the stepping stone. Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Kimball.
Yeah. I like the analogy of, let's say, administration or engineering sales. And another place of humility that we must appreciate is the technician. That, you know, you guys who I teach thermo and fluids to, you don't know how much my automate mechanic is a critical person to teach me a lot of things that I bring into the classroom. He doesn't have a degree, might not even have a high school diploma, but there is a space there. And so even when you may not be able to get that engineer's job, there are lower level jobs that, you know, somebody talk about the dream job. You might be surprised what you're dreaming for might not be where you'll be going, where you actually end up might really be the dream job, but you didn't realize. You thought, you know, sometimes we build these worlds that we really were not suited for. And so you also have to leave space, believe that the Lord has a plan greater than your own. What you think is best. Certainly have your plans. But when you're faced with oppositions and it don't seem to work out, the world is not over. And you know, the road of humility will bring you exactly where you need to be. That's all I think Jervis was saying. And I fully concur.
Right.
Definitely. And I like the fact that Mr. Campbell mentioned the technician job and also the stepping stone, because my first job, fresh out of UTech, I worked as a technician. I worked as a control technician. And I worked that job for a year before I was able to apply. Well, I didn't apply. It was same UTech did the same thing again, and I got called for an interview as a process engineer. So, but I'm telling you, working as a technician, it taught me so much. It taught me a lot. I learned how to relate to all different kinds of people. I learned how to know every single area of the plant. And when I became an engineer now, I was able to, the very first thing I did was to take up the PNID, and I studied it, and I walked outside and I looked and I know where every valve was in my area, etc. And those, if I didn't, let's say, become a technician first, maybe I wouldn't even know to do that initially. So there are a lot of things you can learn by just not, you know, accepting a job that may not be an engineering job, but learn all that you can and pick up certain values there that you can apply later on in a career, or even to build on it in an existing career.
If you don't mind me commenting, yes, you see, experience is very, very important. You see, when you leave school and then what we learn at UTech, we can apply it in various different sectors. We can apply it in farming, agriculture. We can design stuff. Jerry, you remember when they used to teach about this robot chicken business in you remember Mr. Senior class?
Yes.
Robot chicken, whatever it was. But it give you ideas. You can actually do farming and make it intelligent, you know, efficient, and make it more productive and make a lot of money. But what you need is foundation, get some experience. One of my regrets is some place in my earlier days that I was working with, I didn't try to learn everything about their business. I was just zoomed in on my area. I should have learned fire alarm systems, suppression systems, plumbing systems. These things will come in when you have a company. You can actually offer a wider range of services. You understand? And make a lot more money. You know, but if you you have to be very, very focus on a 5-year plan.
Yes,
have a projection of a plan. Give me a year to learn this or 2 years to learn this, very good. And then you'll be in demand because people need these services. And you already know come with the qualification plus the skill set to offer the services.
All right. Um, I think that is everyone. So you heard it from the engineers. Chase the experience, not the money. The money will follow. That I
Right.
think is a key takeaway from what the engineers are saying. We do appreciate you spending the time or 3 minutes over the time, but we do appreciate you coming here and sharing with us.
Definitely.
I do know that the students watching the recording will really take a lot out of it. So I really do appreciate you guys coming out.
Before we end though, any last comments or recommendation in any aspect that we were speaking about? So working in academia, entrepreneurship in engineering, and also choosing whether to work in private sector or the public sector. Open floor.
I want
Anybody?
to add, I want to add one thing. Um, I know I'm trying to be real here. Um, owning your business is not for everyone, you know. And I just gonna address it. You know, it's not for everybody. It's very challenging. It's very difficult. There's a lot of commitments, right? That has to be made. Um, you know, Paul in the beginning, he said something where he said, you have to know yourself, right? Know yourself, look into yourself, look at what you want to achieve, look at what is in front of you, know your strengths, know your weaknesses. Um, you know, a lot of businesses, a lot of startups, sorry, you know, end up going under because improper planning, capital, the wherewithal to go through the challenges and the demands that business calls on you. You know, it's difficult. So I mean, we sit here, we're talking to you about these, pros and cons and so on. But we also, I think, probably it's a different session. Um, but it's not an easy thing. I mean, I saw basically got some gray hair in 1 year. You know,
Really?
Yeah, man. It was all no gray hair. And then about 2015 thereabouts, I look back at some photos. 2015, 16, gray hair started. Yeah, yeah. So there are challenges there, and I just had to put it out there. You know. All of us have stories, I'm sure. All of us here, Mark, Dan, Jervis, Paul, all of our stories here. But I had to bring it forward to you guys. You know, not in detail, but it's know yourself, as Paul said.
Right. It's not all glitz and glam. A
No,
lot of tar and muck in it as well, but you have to be dedicated.
you know, and
Yes.
the rewards are there. You know.
Definitely.
What I'd like to add is that um, perspective that you want to have coming out of school is that the folks there at UTech, they're taking you through a journey. You are the sum of your experiences, right? And they know that the program was designed to expose you to a wide cross-section of knowledge areas that they know will assist you in becoming who you ought to be when you leave the institution. The degree is only going to be a paper, right? And some people pride themselves around the degree only and not around the experience and the journey. They are teaching you some things. You're studying electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, chemical, you name it, but you're doing communication courses as well. And you might say, I'm not going to focus on these communication courses because that's not what the institution that I'm going to work for is going to ask me to do. But nothing could be further from the truth, because what the business needs is a complete engineer. You need somebody who can communicate at different levels with different kind of stakeholders. And if you can communicate and get that word across, the better you are at that, the the more successful you will be in your projects, the more successful you will be in your career. Right? You're going to do some things in economics, and you might want to turn your back on that as well and say, I'm not going to be doing economics when I get my degree. I'm going to be an engineer. But the person who's going to employ you is employing you because he has a need, he or she has a need that needs to be fulfilled. And you are there to help them to fulfill that need. And the better you are at doing that, at assisting them in identifying issues, identifying problems, identify ways in which they don't make money, identify ways in which they lose money. And you can communicate that to your leadership. You'll find that your career is going to become much more successful than the average engineer. And that's where you get led into that destiny that you never even thought about, that God is going to bring you into. But it only happens when you yield yourself to the journey and to the lessons that are taught along the journey, and having a full understanding and respect for what is being presented there, and how it will assist you in the future. That's what's going to take you in your great destiny and your future. Those are my final statements.
Right. So we're going to have a giveaway for lucky person who is watching the recording. So this is a Flow credit, $100 credit. The number is 56422108533229. Repeating that number, 56422108533226. We'll be having another session tomorrow at the same time, 6 to 8. We'll be discussing addressing engineering truth and myths. We'll have some more engineers here speaking on that. We apologize for the technical difficulties that we had today. It is being rectified and it will not happen tomorrow. So do come out, and you'll definitely enjoy this session, as I'm sure you had enjoyed today. So once more, thank you all for showing up.
Yes, thank
For
you.
joined the live and stayed. Really, really, really appreciate it.